From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot with Kim Strassel and Joe Sternberg. And I want to talk about what looks to be an attempted coup here, engineered by none other than, at least instigated by none other than former Vice President Al Gore and, of course, the legendary climate activist. Let's listen to Al Gore talking last week at an event sponsored by the New York Times.
We need to get a new head of the World Bank, for God's sake. This is ridiculous to have a climate denier as the head of the World Bank. Since almost 90% of the increased emissions going forward are coming from developing countries, we have to take the top layers of risk off the access to capital in these developing countries. That's the job of the World Bank, to coordinate the other multilateral development banks, and they're simply not doing it. We need to get rid of that leadership, put new leadership in, and I hope President Biden will take that initiative.
We will hear from the World Bank president later.
Good. Tell him I said hello. Tell him I said goodbye.
Al Gore, gracious as always. Let's listen to the New York Times reporter basically taking Al Gore's message to David Malpass.
I've never met him. He's not involved in the efforts that we're doing. He may present as a climate person. I don't know what impact that's having.
Okay, let me just be as clear as I can. Do you accept the scientific consensus that the man-made burning of fossil fuels is rapidly and dangerously warming the planet?
I don't know if everyone wants to comment on that. What we are doing is having impactful projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We have a mission of a World Bank that's powerful.
Will you answer the question? Is that...
I don't even know. I'm not a scientist, and that is not a question so Al Gore can put. I don't know why it stays on the stage. What we need to do is move forward with impactful projects.
Well, you can tell where the New York Times was coming from with that, and also that was not David Malpass's most eloquent moment. On the other hand, I'm not sure why he would bother to appear at a New York Times event like that when it's all just aimed at badgering him. My guess is there's something of a setup here. John Kerry, the president's climate envoy, also badgering not Malpass by name last week, but talking about these development banks to get with it on climate change. David Malpass's term expires in 2024. It's a 5-year term. He started in 2019, appointed by Donald Trump. David Malpass has extensive international economic experience. Joe has served in the Reagan administration and international role, and then in the Trump administration, the senior administration role. How do you read what Gore and Kerry are up to here?
Well, I think that the key point that has been developing in a lot of these climate discussions over the past couple years, and this really fully flowered last November at COP26 in Glasgow in the United Kingdom, is this notion of really trying to mobilize financial markets behind all of these climate goals. Because I think that political mobilization, getting elected lawmakers to sign up for a lot of this green energy stuff is proving harder and harder. You know, in the developed world, we see how unreliable it is. In the developing world, the problem is that it's very expensive in addition to being unreliable. And so my take of what's going on here is that the climate activist left really understands that even with all of the subsidies that are developed country governments are pouring into green energy projects, even with the enthusiasm of a lot of private capital, various asset managers in the West for these projects, it's still very difficult to get the economics of it to work out. And so what they want is to be able to rope in large institutions like the World Bank to offer additional financial support for a lot of these green projects. And the problem is that an experienced international economist like David Malpass is a bit too smart to get dragged into that sort of from a risk-reward perspective, and also too focused on the World Bank's core economic mission of supporting economic development in a lot of these places. And so that is one theory I can think of for why Malpass is becoming a target here.
So first point, Malpass didn't deny anything. And of course, after that exchange, he later did say, look, I believe greenhouse gases are playing a role in global warming. It's hardly a controversial thought. Humans interact with the climate. Of course, they have a role on the climate. But the money quote there in the Al Gore clip was that we have to take the risk off the top of capital markets and investment in the developing countries, Kim. That is the essence of what he wants. He wants to take the World Bank, take its loan guarantee power, and guarantee climate loans, private and public, in the developing world for climate projects, whether or not, no matter the risk, whether or not they'll pan out. And if you're a big corporate capitalist, big banker, hey, I'd love guarantees. But of course, who's going to pay for that down the road? It's the taxpayers who finance the World Bank.
They want to socialize the risk of all of these climate projects. And why do they want to do that? Because they're very, very expensive. Let's get to the root of this. If you go back and you look at every country in the history of humanity that has worked itself up from poverty into a middle class status or some level of wealth, they have done it with affordable energy. It is the only way you do it, and it is the biggest challenge in places like Africa right now. You want to know what the problem with Africa is? Almost all of its energy is renewable, meaning that, and by the way, it's not solar panels and it's not windmills, it's wood.
Yeah, it's wood.
They're burning the oldest renewable fuel ever. 78% of their energy comes from burning wood, which has all kinds of other environmental issues like deforestation and indoor air pollution. You know that 600 million Africans have no access to electricity at all in sub-Saharan Africa, which excludes South Africa. So what we want to be doing is affordable projects of the type that have propelled every other developing nation into some level of middle class, whether that be India or China, and you do it through burning coal, you do it through doing natural gas, you lift people out of poverty, at which point they're then more able to invest in the kind of luxurious projects that John Kerry thinks are mainstream because he lives in Martha's Vineyard. And so they know this economic reality, but they're resisting it, and they want to co-opt all of these international institutions for their agenda. And by the way, if you aren't going to get on board and take orders from that, they're going to pillory you in the public forum.
Yeah, now, of course, Joe, that Kim is getting to the essence of the contradiction here, which is the World Bank has a fundamental mission of anti-poverty. It's supposed to lift tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty with investments that will make a difference, and energy is part of that. But you have to have energy that's affordable and efficient if you want to do that. So what do you think, Joe, about the possibility here that the Biden Treasury will push him out? Axios published a story saying, yeah, there's, this is speculative, saying, who knows, that the Treasury is looking into all of this and might push him out. Bloomberg had a similar story, and Axios reported that Al Gore might want the job. Well, he'd have to take a significant pay cut, given all of his climate investments. That would be fun to go through if he does get the job. Well, I don't know. He doesn't have to go through Senate confirmation, so we may never find out all of the green investments he's made and how well they have done. But what do you think is going to happen, Joe?
Well, I think that there is a real potential that Treasury under, in the Biden administration might find itself getting bounced into trying to replace Malpass before his term is up, simply because I think that if you kind of look at the context of this discussion, at the kind of event where this was going on, with Al Gore's role in this new rhetorical campaign against David Malpass, the fact that John Kerry seems to be sympathetic to it, you can just see the pressure mounting on the progressive environmental left to try to take action now that that seed has been planted in some form. And the Biden administration does not have a particularly good track record resisting that kind of pressure. And I think that there's also this feeling on the environmental left, if they are honest, that this is a moment where they need to really be circling the wagons to try to get as many of their people into that kind of post as they can, because I think that the other important piece of context here is that in developed economies, the countries that foot the bill for institutions like the World Bank, they're all in the middle of various energy crises right now, which are happening because of the failure of a lot of the renewables that Al Gore now wants the World Bank to subsidize. So, I mean, if Malpass's regular term would be up in 2024, by the time we get to that point, would it be politically possible to try to put someone like Al Gore in that job to push this agenda in the developing countries? Or might there be a feeling that they need to do it now while there's still a political chance to do so? I think that might be a big part of the calculation that will go on there as Treasury figures out what they want to do.
Well, we shall see what happens, but I agree with you. This administration, particularly Treasury, which has the usual final say over the nomination the president has the final say, but Treasury's recommendation is usually followed. And Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, has been very weak in resisting pressure to oust certain officials. There's the executive director at the IMF pushed out. There was the Inter-American Development Bank head is now being pushed out on phony ethics charges. So we'll have to watch this, and it would be a shame if Malpass were pushed out because he's done a creditable job at that post. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Joe. And thank you all for listening. Be sure to send us your comments and questions at pwpodcast@wsj.com. And if you like the show, please do hit that subscribe button. Wall Street Journal subscribers can also join Kim and Karl Rove and yours truly for a live opinion event. Can Republicans retake Congress on Monday, October 17th at 7 p.m.? That will be live in Dallas or streamed online. And for more information, go to wsjplus.com/opinion live for tickets and more information. And as always, we will be back here tomorrow for another edition of Potomac Watch.